Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. Restart. Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert. I'm Joe Taylor. This morning and other in the ongoing series of programs presented by the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning. The program, through the Northwest Institute of Research, oversees a grant from the Office of Child Development and Early Learning at the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and the Department of Education. The goal of the program is to improve the outcomes for young children as they prepare for school. John Poza from the Pennsylvania Key is the host of the program and is with us throughout the series. And usually, John, we have someone on the phone. Today, we actually have someone here in the studio.
We sure do, Joe. This morning, I'd like to welcome Ashley Ankeny. And Ashley is actually from DuBois, and she is the Maternal, Infant, Early Childhood Home Visitor Specialist for the Pennsylvania Key. I know that is a mouthful. And in addition to working with home visiting, Ashley also is an Infant Toddler Specialist for the Pennsylvania Key, and she works through the Office of Child Development and Early Learning through the Nurse Family Partnership Program. So welcome to the program, Ashley. It's quite a few hats you wear.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I also want to add that Ashley also was an elementary school teacher in the DuBois School District for several years before she got involved in the work she does now. So one of the first things that I wanted to ask you, Ashley, is that since the Maternal, Infant, Early Childhood Home Visiting Program is your primary work responsibility, I know that's a mouthful. Tell us a little bit about what that program is all about.
Sure. What the program is about is in the state of Pennsylvania, we have our subrecipients, our grantees. We have grantees all across the state, and they're implementing home visitation programs. We work with 4 different models, one of which is Parents as Teachers, Healthy Families America, Early Head Start, and also Nurse Family Partnership. Each one of those programs has different curriculums and a different style of home visitation, but the main goal is to serve families through pregnancy up to 3 years of age.
And so many of those programs are so vital especially to new moms. And especially there's so many factors that go into families to accessing these services. And we're finding more and more that programming really needs to go to the people in the easiest way possible to where they can accept those services in the best way possible. And of course, there's nothing better than to actually have it in the home, especially when those new moms are caring for those children.
Absolutely. It's such a critical time. As a pregnant mom, Nurse Family Partnership works with first-time mothers only, which is a very vulnerable place for a young woman to be.
Yes.
A first-time pregnancy can be a very scary thing, and it's such a wonderful service that we're getting those moms and we're giving them valuable information right from the pregnancy on. And an amazing bond can be built when you have a nurse or a home visitor coming to visit you weekly or bi-weekly, and you are either a new parent or a pregnant mom, and you're sharing so much about this experience with your home visitor, and they're also there to support you, and then they're going to be with you until that child is up to 3 years of age. That's a long time, and it's a lot of really special moments to share with someone.
Now, I know you have a regional area that you cover, and I'm not aware of the exact counties, but I know you have a good part of the Northwest. You may want to comment on where those services are provided.
Absolutely. I cover the western part of the state. The other Infant Toddler Specialist is the eastern part, and I have programs everywhere. I travel to Erie, Venango County, Lawrence County, Clearfield, Jefferson, Clarion, Allegheny County. I'm in Indiana. I mean, you name it, basically locally, and I'm there. Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question in terms of how do you decide, or are people given to you that these are the young women that you should go, or I'm assuming young women, and do a home visit with, or how do you happen to be calling on these particular women?
Well, we have various referral resources that we use. Actually, a lot of pediatricians and obstetricians will send mothers to us, and we work with WIC. Word of mouth has been huge for us. So really it's a lot of networking, community outreach, and we have been very fortunate that, as I said, a lot of doctors, nurses
What is the most common reason that these women are selected?
We do have various reasons. Income guidelines, they can be income eligible. As I said, a lot of the first-time mothers, it's just those that are out there that want more information. We have a lot of self-referrals. We do, once people know that these programs exist, we do have families that come directly to us and say, I'm really interested in what you have to offer. I'd like to know more about what's going to happen during my pregnancy and thereafter. And they sign up themselves, which is great.
Now, I know that in the work that you do, there are what's called home visitor competencies. Mm-hmm. You do assessments. You have the mother do a self-assessment and a reflection, and then there are competencies that you have to look at, and I know that they're in 7 different areas, so you may want to just touch on those a little bit.
Sure. The Pennsylvania home visiting competencies, it's very exciting, actually, and they're brand new. This is the first year that we're implementing them, and what we're doing is we want home visitors to take a look at themselves, really. It's a self-evaluation, and we do have various domains that we want them to take a look at and determine if they feel really competent in that area or if they'd like some additional training. Same with families, because I do work with several different models. As I said, I have nurse-family partnership. You have to be a registered nurse to work for nurse-family partnership. So these home visitors going into the home, they're registered nurses. They come from the medical field. Parents as teachers, early Head Start. These home visitors have a background in education. Okay, so what we're kind of trying to take a look at across the state is when we go into these homes, we want to provide them with developmental information, information about education, and also information about health and safety. So what we're kind of finding is obviously if you're in nurse-family partnership, your background is in the medical field, and that's probably where your area of expertise is. If your parents as teachers, early Head Start, your background is in education, and that's your area of expertise. We want across the board to make sure that our home visitors are able to give their families information, whether it be medical information, health and safety, across education and development. So what we want to see is that consistency across the board. So we're asking our home visitors to take a look at themselves and say, this is where I'd like additional training. And from the key aspects, our goal is to hopefully get the web-based program where then our home visitors can get online, do a self-assessment online, and we can immediately offer them trainings based upon what their needs are, whether it's webinars or that's what our main goal is.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about medical area. Obviously, your relationship with physicians, nurses in the local community, bringing them on board, having a relationship with you as well as with the families that they serve is so critical so that you both in a collaborative effort are supporting the mother. Absolutely.
Home visiting is something near and dear to me. I have been a home visitor myself, and it is such a unique job. And as I said, the bond that you're building with these families is so enormous. And to have the support of the community, the school district, doctors, nurses, it's huge because I think that not everyone realizes that, first of all of our home visiting programs, they must be evidence-based,
right? Not
research-based. These are evidence-based programs. We know that they work. It's so valuable what happens with these children before they ever even get to school. 80% of basic brain development happens by 3 years of age,
right?
Up to 90% by 5. So if we can get everyone on board to understand the value of what we're doing with home visitation, that we are getting them right away, and we are teaching these parents so many things that are so valuable for those young maturing minds, those young brains, that the payoff is huge. By the time they get to school, they're where they need to be, and development is just where it needs to be.
Right.
I would imagine that people that you call on, or that the people who are calling on the new moms have to walk a fine line between being considered to be judgmental. I mean, they've got enough stress to begin with, and being helpful. How do you negotiate that area? Because here's someone coming into your home saying, well, you shouldn't really do it this way. You should do it that way. So how do you handle that? I'm just interested in that.
Many, many moons ago when I graduated from college, the very first interview that I had was for a position in early Head Start. And one of the interview questions was much like that. How are you going to reach these families and not be judgmental and be open-minded? And my response then is the same now. It's so important to remember that you are a guest in their home. And you need to sometimes step away from what is the norm for you, because we are not all raised the same way. Unfortunately, the childhood that you had is not the same as someone else's. And it is so important not to judge that. We all have different backgrounds. So you need to walk in and take consideration of where they're coming from and who they are as individuals, and not tell them what to do, but support them, guide them in what's appropriate.
And I know I'm not the first person to have said this, Joe. It's been said by many people. You don't go to school to become a dad or a mom or a parent. You can pick up tips from a book, but you all of a sudden become one, and then you gotta figure it out. Right. So that's why programs like this are so important and so critical, because that's how our future generation, our kids, are going to grow up. Those moms, those parents need to have the proper tools to make sure that those children, their children, our children, are prepared to be successful in life. I wanted to kind of touch base on another aspect of your work, Ashley, that you are soon going to be a member of Pennsylvania's home visiting state CQI team. That's a team that's dedicated to continuous quality improvement in the area of home visitation across the state of Pennsylvania. Tell me a little bit about that and how that in itself is going to make kind of like your own self-assessment as individuals and as specialists in the field have a greater impact, so that you can improve and provide even better services.
We're very excited about this, actually. Many of our agencies already had CQI, continuous quality improvement, in place within that individual agency. What's happening now is, as a state, all of our grantees, they're submitting information to us in regards to what their current CQI is. And so we've actually done a lot of training, a lot of research, and what we're implementing is a PDSA cycle, which not everyone had to do prior to this, but it's called Plan, Do, Study, Act. So our programs come to us and say, for example, we are working on recruitment right now. That's our goal. We need these referrals. So we say, okay, I want you to sit back and come up with a plan. And then what's the first step that you're going to take to implement that plan? What are you going to do? Then they do whatever it is. We come back and we study it. Did it work? If it didn't, why didn't it? So that's what we're doing with each individual agency. Then we're taking all of that data and putting it into one plan. So what we'd like to see happen in the future down the road is we work statewide. So we have programs that are in Philadelphia that we're finding are working on some of the same things that our programs here in DuBois are. So what we want to do is, if what's working in Philly is working wonderful, we want to bring that to all of our home visiting programs. We really want them to be able to connect and network and provide each other with information, so that we are constantly improving what we're doing, that home visitation is constantly getting better, and that we're doing that by supporting each other and really working together.
That's great. And one thing before I forget now, of course, for those who are listening, who want to know about the services, what's the first thing or place that they should go to see if they would qualify or to make arrangements?
Sure. It really does vary based on county. One of the things that I've seen recently and I'm very excited about, and this is taking place in Erie and Allegheny, they have what's called a centralized intake. So families call one number and kind of explain a little bit about themselves or what services that they're looking for, and that centralized intake will guide them to the appropriate program. So okay. Whether it be nurse-family partnership, parents as teachers, early Head Start, if the child's older, pre-K. So that's something that's wonderful that's going on in some counties. Locally, In some of my smaller counties, a lot of it is word of mouth. And if you check the phone book, we have Sinclair Child Services, the Guidance Center locally, our home nursing agency has a nurse-only partnership program right here in DuBois. And that's kind of fascinating for me because I've lived here my entire life, worked in the school district, and at one time worked for Early Head Start. Did not know we had a nurse-only partnership here.
Right. There's a lot of folks that probably don't. Yeah. It's a program that is not offered in many places across the state, but such a valuable program. And of course, there's a lot that goes into getting a contract to provide those services, which we won't go into, but such a vital program.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, I mean, the goal is we actually are trying to work towards getting that centralized intake across the board. So hopefully we'll see that someday. But right now it is asking your doctor, your pediatrician. Often they'll be able to guide you in the right direction. As I said, you can open up the phone book and find some of these places.
John had mentioned earlier that the goal of what you do is to provide proper tools for, I guess, both the child and the parent to be successful. In our area, what are the tools that are most efficient that you find, both in terms of the mother and potentially of the child that you have to deal with?
Sure. Truthfully, what our motto is parents are your child's first teacher. You are your child's very first teacher. And the resources that we're trying to share, they vary for each individual family. This is very individualized services. So in that toolkit, we want to provide them with, do they need mental health services? Do they need referred to WIC? Is the child developing appropriately? If not, do we need to make referrals to early intervention? Our nurses are constantly monitoring for health, making sure that the baby is healthy and safe. And a big thing too, even for myself, I don't think people realize that every interaction that you have with your child in those early years, they're learning, they're developing, from bath time to when you're feeding them. And we really just provide parents with information so that they're constantly interacting and talking to and realizing that all of those tiny things make huge differences.
That's why there's a continuum that the state, and it's actually a national movement. We call it P3, meaning prenatal, not just preschool, but prenatal through grade 3. That a continuum so that those who work, whether it's in the human services area, prior to when the child is in preschool or in childcare, to the time they enter formal schooling up through third grade, because those are the so-called early years of development that are so critical, because a lot of changes tend to happen. A lot of development takes place, obviously, but a lot of changes can tend to happen in terms of child outcomes after grade 3. Which brings me to my next question, Ashley. I know that you first started working as a teacher. You worked in the Sykesville Elementary School in the DuBois School District, and I know that was very rewarding, but you decided to make a career move working with young families, especially working with younger children, because I'm assuming you feel that you can make a greater impact with kids at that younger age.
Absolutely. Truthfully, as I said, everything in a child's life starts at home. And there's a lot that we can do at a school, but realistically, it's the parents that we need to reach first. And there's just so much value in it, and it's important to me to be an advocate for these programs. And as I said earlier, I really want there to be buy-in across the board. I know that sometimes even in school districts, I think there's kind of a mentality of education starts at kindergarten. It starts the day they walk into an elementary school, and I can understand that. I have been a teacher myself, but I also have this background and this understanding of the years prior to. And as I said, unfortunately, we all do have different backgrounds, and we come from different places, and some children aren't read to every day. You may have been, some aren't. And we need to remember that we can walk into a home and say to a mom, "Are you reading every day?" And the answer might be no. But by encouraging them to do that and all of these other small interactions from birth on, what a difference we're going to make by the time they get to school. Huge.
Absolutely. School readiness is so critical in our line of work. And, we mentioned about grade 3. It's this P3 continuum because, and some folks may be wondering, why just a grade 3? Well, it's because theoretically grade 3 is when the first, I hate to bring it up, but the first PSSA testing occurs. And so that's the first barometer in terms of the public school system as how your child is doing. So it's using those early years to be ready and be prepared, because we know, we see the outcomes, we see the results when children not only are not ready for school, but then enter school and need those extra resources and services to kind of play catch up. And it's not to say that some children can't catch up, they can, but that's that first barometer, right? The third grade.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the home visitor competencies, and especially in the area of safety, individual safety, as well as for the family and community, because that's the number one criteria as with any family-based unit. So in that competency, what do you look for specifically in your visits with the families?
When we're working with a family, we actually, right from go, we do a baseline of safety when we walk into their home, almost like a checklist. And then we utilize that to determine what the family's needs are in regards to safety. And it varies across the board. You know, we see a lot of different things. Every family is very different. And so we really have to take that information, data, if you will, and implement it to move in the right direction with those families. And, you know, we're very fortunate that we're able to provide families with things like cribs, car seats, safety gates, you name it, child locks for cabinets. Those are some of the basic things even that we start working with. Something that Nurse Family Partnership is fortunate, not all of my programs, but some, they actually have their swaddling blankets because we've learned that helps with SIDS. So there's a lot of areas that we try and inform our parents and educate them about, and then provide them with some tools.
Absolutely. Anyway, I wanted to talk about that because obviously with so many programs, whether it's in childcare or basic human services, with new family, safety is the number one thing that you look at. And, you know, we mentioned some of these things to the average person and think, oh, well, that's almost an obvious. But to a new mom who's dealing with the stress of becoming a new mom, some of those things are not the more obvious things. And so that's why it's so critical. And the fact that those services can be provided if they are not already is such a great thing. Yeah. Where do you see the future, Ashley, of the program going?
Home visitation?
Yes.
This is a very exciting time for home visitation. There is proposed in the budget this upcoming year, there's a line item for home visiting, an individual line item. That's the first time that we've seen that. That's enormous. And as I said, it's because the outcomes, the results, we have evidence. So we know this is working. And I think that in the future, our programs are only going to expand. You're going to see more of us.
Yeah, I do too. I just think it's just a wonderful program. And, I think that we're coming to a fruition with, federal funding, race to the top, all the things that are part of this continuum that we spoke of that is so critical in getting a child ready and getting mothers and families and keeping them intact. And I just think it's a great program. And thank you so much, Ashley, for being on the program. I know our time is gone, but come back again and we'll talk again. Yeah, thanks. Great. Thank you.
And that's our program for today. We'll be back in 2 weeks at this same time. In the meantime, you can go online to learn more at papromiseforchildren.com. For John Posa and the Northwest Regional Key Program for Quality Early Learning, I'm Joe Taylor. Thank you for listening and have a great day.